All right, guys, hopefully this will help a lot of folks out there. This is Dilly Dally, and I just wanted to make a video kind of going over some things. It's been over a year though, so I hope I can remember the important details, things that I got hung up on, questions that were answered for me, and whatnot. Otherwise, Big D40 did a fantastic job with the instructions and the pictures and the wiring diagram, which I'll reference here in just a bit. But anyway, so got to give credit where credit's due. This is all because of the legwork and generosity of Big D450 and his willingness to share all his hard work with the rest of us. So credit for him for everything I've done was purely based on his legwork and the effort he's put in, or else I never would have done this. I, like many others, you need the fan on these TPIs when it gets slow, and I just didn't want to have to, I don't know. I was like many of you, I was jealous of the XCW, and just wanted it to be the same. So I was really glad that this project was posted that I could follow. So where do I start? So I started at the front. Up here is where I brought the headlight and made my connector, and then ran it back. I spliced into the loom here, this big plastic. I don't know if I can see that. There we go. Big plastic loom. And then fed my wires through, and then came out right here. You can see part of my come out for my ground. I went to ground, kind of where everything else was going to ground. Right up under here, right here. Right at the top of, I don't know what that's called. I'm drawing a blank. Maybe it's my old age. But right there, I took it to ground with the others. And that's going to the headlight. Or maybe that's going to the fan. I can't remember. Anyway, the ground doesn't matter. For the light and the fan, pulling them from ground, anywhere on the frame that's doesn't have paint, right? And I just used other points that KTM used for ground and went in that way. So I have a positive wire coming and the negative joining it, right? And I came forward and worked my way back. I think in hindsight, I would have been able to clean up some of this by working back forward, because then you can have a bunch of extra on the forward and then just snip off what's extra, right? So it's not a big enough deal for me to change it, but I'm kind of all jammed up in here, and it's not very tidy, but I do have a slight OCD and it does bother me, but again, not enough to redo the project. I couldn't find or source a fan connector at the time. I have one now, and I need to put it on. I just have been lazy to do it, but this is my fan connector, and it all ties in. You just tie it in. Like this is my handmade one, and you just keep bringing it back to everything. That's pretty straightforward, right? So here is the the regulator pin. And it's, if you're staring, sorry man, I'm trying to look and not look at the video. If you're staring at the pin, here, let's zoom in just a wee bit here. There we go. Come down on it. And the disconnect here is right here, right? It's going to be that, if the disconnect's at the top, it's that upper right pin. It's the only one that's empty. It shouldn't be hard to find. And these are all very similar pins that are on various plugs on various KTM bikes. And so you just find one that looks the same, and it should plug and snap right in. So rather than cutting into the stock loom there, I just put it on the outside. This gaffer's tape is holding up really, really well. You can only see it as slight loomed or unwrapped wire, and then I join the harness that I made, which is right here. Here, all of this nasty wrapped stuff, you get the picture. As much ambition as I have to make it look clean like KTM, that's what I ended up with. for the ECU, just again, the picture, Big D 450's pictures are clear, but this is how it plugs in. To remove the cover, you have to, what did you have to do? Pinch. So this kind of goes over like that. And on the end here, these little prongs right here and here, they have to come out. And then this cover slides like that. I got caught up on that, I remember. And then you have access to this. You have to pull out this gray thing here. That kind of comes out and then stops. And then once you get your pin, and I ordered mine from DigiKey, just like Big D450 referenced, and just a couple of bucks. The shipping was more than the actual pin. And then I think I plugged it in there and it didn't lock, so I just turned it 90 and then eventually locked. Or it stayed in there, and then I could slide the keeper. This is the keeper. It's not actually going to lock, I don't think. Somebody can correct me there. And then you slide the keeper in, and then it keeps the pin in. My wire is blue right here. And just to show you, if you're looking at it from the back here, with this thing at the top, you know, second row in that way, third pin up. And it's this blue one right there. So that's for the fan control relay. And then I just, you know, you can kind of see it on the outside of the existing loom, and I just wrapped it with electrical tape. And it's all covered and looks pretty good once that cover's on and it's plugged in. So that's how I did that. That's a picture of the voltage regulator trigger for the light. That's your fan trigger. So those are the two triggers you need. And then you build it back. So I also got kind of hung up with the order of things here because the diagram is a little backwards. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here is Big D 450's diagram that he posted. I included all the highlights. Right, your 12 volt comes into your lighting relay, and then from your lighting relay you feed your fan relay, because this lighting relay is going to be triggered by the voltage regulator, which means it's only going to be active when the bike is on and running, when the voltage regulator sees voltage coming from the stator. And that's what we want, because we don't want anything draining our battery, right? And so this is kind of like a central relay that's going to basically be triggering both the light and the fan relay. So that's why it's wired that way. But then it comes and it shows it going, you know, breaking off, going to the, so this is our switched positive power. So this is the power that's getting bridged, getting interrupted. Don't get caught up on which side of the relay. This doesn't matter, right? The positive sides don't matter because it's just a bridge. It's just going to connect it and complete the circuit. Obviously, you need to get the positive, negative for the switch part, but the switched part, if that's not confusing, doesn't matter for either side, right? So coming on down, and then, you know, just following the diagram, it looks like it goes to the fuse, and then from the fuse to the fan relay, and then to the fan. So just to kind of help my visual brain, and this is not how it flows on the bike. I redid the diagram so it looks like more like this. Let me bring this over to the bike. So I'm pulling power just straight off of the positive battery, and it's going right into my light relay. This is my light relay in the middle. This is the factory relay for the XCs that's already there. It doesn't get interrupted or touched at all. It's still part of its original loom and whatnot. Here's the positive, and I just did an eyelet right off the battery. I spent a decent amount of time trying to find a way to just tap into the bike's positive without having to do this, but ultimately this is fine. It's just stupid OCD on my part, and there's no problem. I've had no problems with just go ahead and doing an eyelet, bolting it underneath the positive straight from the battery, and beginning the work, because it all starts right here, right? And then, so this is my lighting relay, and then this is my little blue jumper wire, because it's the same, right? And so you read this, and you might want to take it off the battery as well. Then you have two wires going across. You only need the one, and then I just ran a small jumper, as you can see with this little looped wire here. You could probably use any shrink wrap on your soldering joints or your clamping joints, depending on how you're doing this. I think I soldered everything. And then I use this marine grade shrink wrap with like a glue sealant in it, just for good measure. So that is that. So so I, instead of going to the fuse first, because, again, we're working from, sorry, I need to come back out. We're working from the back forward with our flow of electricity, so to speak. I wanted to switch this up. And so, because I'm so visual, I had to literally draw it out. And so I come off of the lighting relay from the positive power from the battery to the light relay. It gets switched on by the voltage regulator negative pin, which, I didn't draw in the negatives on this one, did I? Oh, that's because, yeah, it's right here. I just didn't highlight it. So once it switches it, connects the circuit right, then the power goes, and I wanted it to go to the fuse first before it went to the fan. And so that's how I drew it. So I come off of the light relay. It then goes to the fan relay. I wanted it to go to the relay first, then the fuse, then the fan. I wanted the fuse between the relay and the fan. That's what I wanted. And it's not drawn originally that way by default on the KTM manual. So I come here and I go into the relay first, and then I take the positive and go to the fuse, because we're working our way forward. So light relay positive to the fan relay, which is here. I unplugged that, and I'll explain that in a minute. Then to the fuse, and then to the fan. And that's the flow of things here. So that's why I drew the lines a little bit different. And this is my own line connecting, because I wanted the fan behind the fuse after the relay, because the relays are up top, then the fuses, then the light and the fan. So that's kind of how I have the flow of things. That was my only change to the diagram. Otherwise, it's spot on, minus this needs to be highlighted orange, because one of the things I had my hard time getting my head around was the positive power is what's getting interrupted, but the ground is what's switching it. And so coming off of the voltage regulator right up here, and this connector here is a negative signal for switching for the relays. And then also from the ECU is a negative switch, right? So that was like, it took me a while to finally get my head around how things are happening. It's ground that's doing the switching, but it's the positive power to both fan and light that's being switched. Kind of interesting how KTM did that, but it makes sense after studying this and working with it for a while. But the question was posed, like, where do you pull your ground? Again, I kind of covered this, but just find any point on the frame, screw hole. Usually it's up in here, right? That's not painted. And I chose to use the original, what KTM was already using, just to tap into that. And then for my light ground, I honestly can't remember. I'm thinking it's the same. I'm thinking it's this wire. Let me come around. I'm thinking I used that, but it kind of looks like it's heading in that direction and not up to my headlight, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I got two wires. Oh, I'm sorry. Get this out of the way. I got two wires coming out of my loom there. So I went ahead and just pulled power for my Trail Tech Endurance computer right here from the light point. Just tapped into it, and then I used some of that marine shrink wrap with adhesive just to kind of seal it all up. That worked out kind of clean and nice. I maybe wish I'd have left this a little bit longer. But at the same time, I didn't want so much wire bunched up here. It was going to be a nightmare. I think that covers it. Again, the only place let me back out. The only place I really spliced into the KTM loom was just right from this point, basically even from under here where it starts. This is only the negative coming out, but the rest of my harness and the positive wire that I'm using to feed the forward, because the fan breaks out right around here, right under here, is right here, and it's just because it was really loose, and it's kind of like a flexible plastic sleeve, you know. And so I just took an X-Acto, pricked it, used like a fiberglass rod, and fished my wires, and just used this existing sleeve and cover for it. But there the fan is super clean. I think my big problem with like the Trail Tech fan and whatnot, it was sticking a probe in the fins. Not a big deal. Like in hindsight, I think about it, I'm like, it's really not a big deal. You're not really staring at it. The fan will still come on. But there's just something about having the ECU control it that it really resonated well with me. That's just what I wanted. So I did it, and I'm glad I did. It was worth it. Coming back to this. So I didn't source all my connectors individually. I started to. As those that are doing this project are finding, it's quite a bit of work. And so I ended up buying a used wiring harness off of eBay from, I think it was a 690 Super Duke 08 maybe. And it had most all the connectors. Well, it had all the connectors except for the fan connector and the same style of relay base, I guess you could say. So this is the kind of base that I dealt with. You can see it. It's a bit different. The relay is just brown thing that slips into the socket, whereas on these off-road bikes, the relay kind of goes over the purple, which is actually the base. And so it's backwards, right? So I just had to grind down one of these like that so that I could take, my tools, so that I could take the relay that came with the fan and put it over like on the factory one. And that's why I just wanted to show you how I did that, because it took sanding and grinding and carving, and it was a bit of work, but I wanted to use that relay. I don't know, I could have just used one of these brown ones and had two of these. I should have just did that, but that's what I did. So I wanted to show you that process here. Yeah, the fuse. So there were these two middle fuses that were, let me zoom in. These two middle fuses that were, they're from the factory on the XCs, right? And then these outside ones are for fan. I think the 5 amp one is fan, and then I use 10 amp for light, although I'm not even drawing 10, but I wanted to give myself the option to run a higher wattage bulb up front if I ever needed to. And so I just put a 10 in there for now anyway. And then that way I think then these were they my spares? I can't remember. I think I have a bunch. Anyway, I need to put spares in here, but these would be my spares if I needed them for the main and the fuel pump, I believe, or what the two factory ones were. I'd still have spares for those important ones, and be on my way. That's about all I can think of. I don't know if I missed any of the important stuff. I know this is a big question mark and a scary point, but it's really not that big a deal. And again, you know, I didn't open up the previous loom. I just wrapped tape around it with the wire, you know, just right on top of it, and haven't had a problem. And then you just take the grounds to the fan and to the light from a good point in the frame. That's how it is on the XCWs. And let's see. For the light, for the XCs, I guess I could talk about this. And if you want a computer, right, you could, oh man, I'm so sorry. You could have a conflict here between your status lights and an endurance computer. I made mount at first, and now I just bought the XCW computer mount, and the endurance screws right to it. So that's worked out really, really nice to mount that, and it's in the perfect spot for me anyway. I didn't want it big and obtrusive, and that worked out really nicely, but I had to find a place for these lights. And so all this is some double stick foam tape around the edge of the XCW computer mount, and then I have a zip tie like on this end, and then a little one right here on this end. And you know what? It's not solid, but it hasn't moved. I can see the lights, and it's kind of perfect for me. I have no qualms about that. I went ahead and added the switch just so that I could save myself from going through bulbs on the headlight. And the mount was, of course, already there from the XCW. So that worked out really nice. This whole piece came from that Super Duke wiring harness. It had the female spade connectors. Just plug onto the switch there, and then I just soldered it between a line on the light package. And I gotta say, as a final note, this minute's getting long, or this video's getting long, but I gotta say, like, I know a lot of people complain about this stock KTM headlight, and I was, like I said, my full plan was to swap that out with something brighter, but honestly, I gotta be straight with everybody. It does a really good job. Like, it's not Race the Baja 1000 at night kind of a light, but it's definitely a whole lot better than nurse it back to the truck kind of a light that it seems like a lot of people describe it as, and maybe it's different. So this mask and kit I bought from AOMC as their packaged kit, because they're the only place I could get it in white. I wanted white, and Rocky Mountain only sells the orange one, and I wanted to keep the XC look with white. But so unless they swapped out the bulb for something different, I don't know. It's really quite good, and I'm just gonna leave it. I can even ride at a decent pace at night with it. So for those that were wondering about that, and you can really get caught up in, I don't know what a lot of people are expecting. Again, maybe I got lucky and they already kind of upgraded it from the OEM ones that come on the W, but I think it works really good. And it's only, 35 watts. So yeah, I think that's all I got for you. I got a little long-winded, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Please, you can private message me, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Hope that helps.